again, whatever family member would do when something like this would happen is, okay, how do I continue? How do I go on with my life after this? And that's how some people do it. They say, all right, I'm going to wake up every day. I'm going to fight for my child. I wasn't able to protect him, but I'm going to wake up every day and protect him. Who doesn't understand that? Well, what was the sick part is that you had a Congress that wouldn't change background check laws, and loopholes, and nobody cared in America. Nobody reacted. There was no marches. There was no nothing. Nothing happened. It's the same old thing. So, I still believe that the darker side, the Charlottesville riot side, is that side still wins out. I'm on the other side.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but today or yesterday is the actual anniversary of Charlottesville, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
Charlottesville was yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's when somebody went too far and drove a car into protesters. Somebody who wasn't mentally stable went too far with the rhetoric and decided to drive his car. I mean, for what? I mean, what are you thinking when you do something like that? You'd love to interview him. Like, what? Where did you think? How do you think that was going to help anything?
This is a bit of
mentally disturbed.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. This person was probably mentally disturbed for perhaps his entire life, right? But think about this. Remove the fervor of the angst of these political conversations and these furthering of voices of such as Alex Jones and the environment and everything else, and you make a very strong, or you could make a very strong argument in case that these people are victims of this sort of social illness. Would they have gotten into a car and driven and done these crazy things? I mean, they were mentally ill probably their entire life and got increasingly worse at the very least. But why did this incident happen? Would it not be for this agitated Alex Jones type culture and environment and culture that we're in? Would that mental illness have evidenced itself in that manner? I would say almost. Of course not. I don't see. Were it not for the culture being the way it is now, that because that's not what happens. I mean, but if I'm raised by radical, Islamic extremists, my mental illness would not probably evidence itself in the exact same way. It might evidence itself me getting on a plane, right? It might evidence itself with me taking a knife and cutting someone's head off. Your culture, your society plays a part in how one's extremes reveal themselves. And so I think the culture is as much to blame, which includes things that are as minor as one would say as elevated speech, like Alex Jones.
So I would agree with that, and again, this is not related, and we'll talk about it on a different day. But you bring up the Muslim world, and you are leaning. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just the fact that you may be indoctrinated in a certain way of thinking.
Absolutely.
In that world, in the Middle East, and so I advise you to watch also another Frontline documentary called "Bitter Rivals: Iran and Saudi Arabia." Unbelievable, and it's more about the involvement. It's about their rift, but more about how America has completely fucked with that area and is completely, partly responsible for much of the chaos that has gone on there. Because that region very well could have modernized, but because we wanted resources, we kept going in there and fucking with it and creating vacuums. It's too long for me to. It'll be for another day where you'd have to go and watch this. But again. Unbelievable.
I mean, all I'm saying is it's really basic. I mean, there's no magical things. Just don't magically happen. Things have origin stories. People get created. People's beliefs and access to information. These are all have sometimes it's lack of access to information. Flying a plane over a population and just dropping pamphlets out, right? which was a military tactic saying, look, there's other stuff going on in the world that you might want to not support your current regime. So these things are what I came from a very supportive sort of religious background, and so I can follow that path, or I can resist that path. But it's all part of my origin story, information and things I've seen. I also traveled the world as a military brat. I saw different countries and different people and different ways of life. So that information has informed me that I got as a kid to my great benefit. But what happens if you don't have access to these sorts of experiences that I would deem positive? And that's all what I think is, that's my big takeaway from what you're saying, is that there are reasons that things happen and reasons that people do things. It's not magic. And I'm only sort of speaking on that for every horrible boogeyman that we come up with, and for every, great creature of positivity, there's a reason why they are. They're not just rolling the dice and going, I want to be a good person today. There's causal impacts. And I think we got to give people more access to positive things rather than negative. And that goes to why these tech companies, for whatever, real reason they're doing it, that's sort of the good impetus. We have to start giving people positive things that they can latch on to, because we're increasingly demonstrating how vulnerable and weak and sad and emotionally, pliable in the face of really negative impacts.